Hello and welcome back. It's the last Saturday in September. Our first frost, our average first frost is about October the 1st. And so I'm going to give you a complete garden tour now. We had a couple of light frost already. If I had put a floating row cover over the squash plants, got to get up here now. They wouldn't have died. There wasn't enough frost to really talk about. But there won't be very much longer now, and we'll be getting heavy frost. I didn't really do anything with the cold frames here because the way the spring was going, I knew I wouldn't get anything in the way of melons. I did, however. That's a cucumber vine here, and the sun is out, and I'm going to open this to see. Never know, some bugs might go in there and fertilize a flower. Down here on this side, I think in an earlier video, the cabbage was out here, but I'll put in a picture anyway, show you the 3 heads that I harvested from here. The cabbage seed fully developed, but they're still green. So, I don't know. Of course, they can withstand quite a bit of frost, and we'll see if they dry out, or do I have to take them in and test the germination later in the winter. Now, I did put some eggplant plants in here. As you can see, this one is beautiful. The plant, that is. And it puts out a lot of flowers. But this year there's been poor germination on, well, most things. The snowball bush, I mentioned that in the last video. And the onions grew well. The frost pretty much killed back the couple of cucumber vines that were here. My tallest sunflower is open. I'm very happy with my sunflowers this year. And I have a little ladybug friend. This is coming along just beautifully. This is the 2nd year of lasagna gardening. And the number of sunflowers that have grown here. Sunflowers is not that easy to grow in Newfoundland. The recommendation for getting sunflowers to grow in Newfoundland is to plant them inside in early May and then transplant them outside after all danger of frost. You plant them in the sunniest place in your garden, and of course make sure they have deep, rich soil. A lot of these, though, were planted as seed directly in the ground. And that is a testament to, of course, the fertility of the compost and meadow clipping that I put down there, and the soft soil that's underneath now. I have been saying that the asters were perennial, and I was checking a couple of days ago, and now I'm not so sure. But I guess we'll see in the spring. of onions that I put along here. As we can see, they're still alive. I don't know how well the onions are growing underneath, and I'm not going to bother to look in and see. Later, when we start to get hard frost, I'll take them up and then I will show you how well they actually grew down here in a harvest video. This side the plants were weaker due to the nutrition and soil issues that I've been mentioning in past videos. We had some wind that blew all the pea vines off the fence. But even here I've got sunflowers to grow, which in previous years you'd never get sunflowers to grow here. The trees are doing well, Romeo. Now, this stickly little thing here is the way the flower comes out. And if I come in close, let's see if you can see it on the camera. I think you can. So those little hairs, they actually normally they'll grow really long, so this looks like a puff of smoke, hence the name the purple smoke bush. This year I'm going to do a better job of wrapping that up, and hopefully next year all of those, because there's quite a few flowers on this bush now. You can't see them very well because they're not well developed. If I wrap it well this year, the next year I should have a really good flower display. There's the Juliet cherry and the pear. This is a forsythia. As you can see now, it needs some TLC. We have branches starting to fall out and twist around. I did give this a little bit of care last year, but not this year. But this now is an example of how the only expert of a particular garden can be the gardener that works there. We have this tree, forsythia bush, and we have this forsythia bush. There's not much space in between them, but this one I have cut way back to bring it down to the size of the other one. And you can see it's much fuller and a much healthier tree. This one is kind of leaned to one side. Something is causing it to grow much slower. They're both the same age. They were when I started to cut back the top one. That one was half the size of the other one. So soon I'll get at that one. Underneath them, this is my new strawberry patch. The strawberry plants have come along quite well this year. These are new ever-bearing strawberries that I got from Vessi Seeds last spring. I think I got one strawberry off these this year. At the base of the maple tree, there's a purple aster there. This strawberry plant was actually one of the extra I had when I put the strawberry plants over by the forsythia. There's 3 or 4 of them here. There's an oregano. It's not growing nearly as good as the oregano over in the regular beds. And a lavender. There's another lavender over right there. So while they're live and looking healthy, they're not growing. And here's a pink aster. The goji berry plants, I can't recommend them right now. I'm still working with them, but they seem to be very fragile for our climate, and maybe it's the place I have it planted in. We shall see, but one of the chinenses here, no leaves on it. Yes, leaves are starting to come back on it. It looks like right there. When the heat comes on in the summer, and we're talking Newfoundland heat now, that's 30 degrees Celsius, it loses its leaves. Let's go to the next firecracker goji. This one lost all its leaves. There's no sign of it growing back yet. You will see. This one looks to be dead. So the other Chinensis gojis that I will be growing, I'm going to try putting them in a shady location. Because as you've seen, of course the maple tree offers this one a little bit of shade, and it didn't lose all its leaves. Pointing out here, this is the second pear tree. Nothing changed there. This broccoli, it did grow, well, it grew, and I got one little tiny head off the top there. The marigold grew fairly well. They like the sun anyway. And as for the chamomile, it just grew this one long stalk, so I'm not so sure about that. Of course, those flowers now, they will drop seed and chamomile will grow up there next year. The cherry plum tree. Can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, they're all doing well. The blueberry bushes starting to turn color, as they do. This one now, we're getting up to where the soil is wetter. Just right here we've got a high water table. And as far as growth goes, there's insect damage on it. I wasn't worried about the insect damage. I wanted to see the growth of the plant with respect to soil moisture and fertility was the main goal for this year. And so it grew better here. But the head didn't really form that well, so I didn't get any heads off this to heat. That's a blueberry bush, the cherry plums, and another blueberry bush. I don't know if you remember, but when I put these here, I said that it being a wet area and full of a lot of organic matter, then coal crops, brassicas, should grow well. They didn't do that well. But I'm thinking with an amendment of, say, if I put some compost around here, they would do better. Once again, ignore the bug damage, except for, if you notice, it seems like these red cabbage don't get as much damage as the green cabbage do. Over here, that's a kohlrabi planted there, and the slugs has eaten right into it. I don't know what's up with this fox willow. As you can see, all its leaves are pretty much gone. What's there is not much life left in it. And this condition, it was starting before the frost. Is that the way it loses its leaves? Just turns a looking sickly and they drop, or what? I don't know. Now this is the area I want some plants that likes a lot of water and will fill in basically on bushes there that'll grow to say 6 feet tall. That's the well up right there. There is another willow. I don't know what kind of willow it is, but it grew up here. I said, you're a willow, you can stay right where you are. Never did get to putting a house on my well yet. Looking beautiful at this end, so I'll give you a scan around. Down in here now, the Goji chinensis. That one retained most of its leaves. It's starting to lose now, but I mean, we've had some cold nights, so. And this one has just one little bit of a leaf right there. So I'm going to wait for them to get a good size before I plant them in the ground. Nope, don't know. This is a cherry tree. Why those leaves are gone brown like that, I wouldn't be able to tell you. My currants. Let's go over and see if there's any more ripe. There was some that wasn't. Yes. Look at this. They're not fully ripe yet, but there was some that was ripe, and boy, they're delicious. Black currants. Now, as we were talking about the sunflowers, I was saying that it's better to plant them inside and then transplant them to the outside. This thing, as far as I know, it's a black oil sunflower. And it grew from seed. After I transplanted it, was down in the pot with the seaberry that's down here. Here's the seaberry bush. Going just nicely. And after I put the seaberry bush out here, they sprouted. This one here, it grew up small, and it was pretty much done, so that's why when the frost come, it just withered away. But it had flowered a long time ago. And then there was this one that grew up. And now the seeds are almost ready to be harvested. And it's a nice size sunflower. But like I said, I don't see how it could be anything but a black oil sunflower. My other seaberry, it died. Going over this way, this is the weakest though of the cherry plums right here as well. Hopefully it doesn't die on me. I have the hens out for a run today. I cleaned out their hens pen, and it's coming to the close of the gardening season, so I said, you guys, now you can go out and wander around the yard today. There's no plums ripe yet. See if I can get them. But they're getting close. There is quite a few plums on this tree. For a small tree, it does fairly well. These trees, they only grow to like 12 feet tall. And so this is what you got. There was another woman over in the UK somewhere, and she was asking about what I'm researching on, the growing degree days. And part of keeping track of my weather data, I also have to put in when these are mature and see if there's some correlation between the maturity date of the plums and the amount of heat accumulated. Now also with the cherries you do the same thing, right? And that way you might be able to get an idea of the amount of summer heat needed for a fruit tree to develop its fruit. Oh no, there's a caterpillar in my garden. What are we going to do? It's a nice looking caterpillar, isn't it? I took the canes, most of the old canes, out of the golden raspberry patch as well. This will be a beautiful patch this next year. I don't often show you this one. This is the sugar maple. And yes, I planted them way too close together because just over right here I have another one. They're 10 feet apart. They're supposed to be actually 30 feet apart. But that's okay, it's only 2 trees, so you can occasionally put 2 trees tight together like that. I didn't pick the currants off this one. The main reason is they're tasty, but I wonder if you can see that. I think you could probably see those seeds inside there. Half the fruit is seed. So I don't like making jam out of them. I have one of those cold pressed juicers now, and it does a very good job of taking out all the juice. And I juiced the ones I picked last year. It made a very strong juice, and I mixed half and half, so out of 2.5 liters I got a liter of juice by the time I had it diluted down to be the right strength. So that's good. Next year they'll be all turned to juice. And now we'll talk about the actual traditional garden beds. In reality, there's only one thing I'm disappointed with, and that is the rutabaga. Now, since September started in and the temperature started to cool down, they are growing again, and I'll see if I can get a compare shot. But it seems like they're outgrowing the bug pressure now. When they were weakened in the August heat, the bugs had them just terribly decimated. And so I'm going to have a bunch of small rutabaga out of this bed, and this one, the American Purple Top, I guess about the same, bunch of small ones. This plant here, I am going to dig up the picture and put it in to show you what it actually looked like when it was in its prime. I thought it was a sunflower, but when it grew up and flowered, I'm like, that's not a sunflower. I did some looking around on the internet, and as far as I could tell, that is a daisy called false sunflower. I don't know how it got there. No sign of bugs damaging the original strawberry patch this year. That's the one that I showed you back in the spring that I wasn't sure whether it was going to come alive again or not, but it is growing back. and they are on their second flush now of strawberries. Thought there was another ripe one in there. Some of them are getting eaten by the bugs, but not very many. If it got serious, I would do something about it. And they are growing really well, and now trying to escape. I've got them coming here. Here's another strawberry. Is he ripe yet? Yeah. And I have them trying to escape on this side. That's that patch. Then we swing up around this one. As it goes back there, it must get drier, and they're not growing as well, but the row down here does well, and these couple here. This is the experimental bed where I was planting stuff last fall to see if it would grow in the spring. Beautifully growth on the parsnips. I already took up 2. I believe that was shown in the video of my almost 100% garden soup. Now I'm going to take up this thing that's gone to seed here, because I really don't need the seed. And it's kind of in the way for you to see just how much the carrots have grown here. So what do we have? Here's a beet that was planted last fall. But now you have this one as well, and he's just a little tiny, never come to anything. These are the Chantenay type carrots. Over in this section, this is carrots that I planted last fall. There's a nice sized top on that one. Let's see, let's take this one up. And you know what, that must be the Chantenay type carrots. He's awfully short. I am not convinced that planting carrots in the fall would do you any good. I think it's better to plant them early spring. Now, not as soon as the ground can work, you don't have to do that, but say at least 2 weeks before your last frost. The mustard experiment was a complete success. As you can see, they are all starting to dry up now. Somewhere here, there's here's one stalk that's gone completely dry. See this? I need to cut this off and harvest those seeds. But all the rest of it, they are drying out. So the seeds are pretty much ready. And this is just seed I took from my spice bottle and planted them and see what would happen. It's one of those plants where you'll have to put your fence around it to keep them from just falling out like they are here. So I'll know that for next year. Looking in among here, there's Jacob's cattle beans. Now, they didn't do all that well in among the mustard, but no surprise, they were completely shaded out. If we go over here, now look at how well they done. So I'll be picking all of these today, and when I get them dry, then I will let you know pretty much. Okay, so I got a 10-foot row here that was pretty much in full sun, and that I'll keep them separate, so we'll see what I get out of a 10-foot row of bean plants. And you know, this bed was sort of a disappointment, but a learning experience too. Back early spring, a community member, he come by, wanted to get some worms. So we dug over this bed and got him a bunch of worms. And the soil, of course, I've turned the soil up, I've turned the organic matter down in, and now I don't have organic matter sitting right on top to hold down that moisture. And I was late planting the carrots. That was my first mistake. I didn't plant the carrots until like the 6th of June, and they should have been planted the 15th of May. They had very sparse germination. But the other thing was, that as soon as the sun hit this, it dried right out. It was raining last half of May, and I didn't want to be out planting in the rain. The rain stopped, I came out, planted things, and we had like a week of sun, and this just dried right out. This bed, the carrots that planted there, not many of them germinated, and what didn't really grow all that much. This plant here, this is interesting, because there is, let me count, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 Swiss chard plants. I had planted Swiss chard here the year before, and I guess some of the seed didn't germinate, and they germinated this year, which was nice. I had some unexpected plants. They grow really nicely here in this bed. But back to speaking about the carrots. Now I did the same mistake here of planting them late, but you can see how the carrots, because this bed wasn't dug over, there's more organic layer right on top, more organic matter right on top, and the carrots, according to the tops anyway, they're growing much better. I took up all the turnips. I'm going to sift some compost out of that bin and put a layer on here, and next Saturday I will be planting this out with garlic. The potato plants in these two beds are not dying yet, so it'll be quite a while before I harvest those. There's a few here, as you can see, are coming to their end. So the next frost, they'll be dead. And the hens found a bare patch to dig in. I harvested the last of the rhubarb. So this border here on this side, as you can see, it's right down level with the soil top. So I need to put something now, get another one, put on top, so that I can put a couple inches of compost over this bed now. And that is how, over time, even though it's not technically a raised bed, the beds, the way I'm doing them, they will appear to be slightly raised, just because I'm building up the bed and not the pathways. Cole crops, I mean, they're alive, but they're not growing plentifully. I mean, look at how small these kale are. I think I harvested a couple of leaves from the furthest one out. They don't grow much in this bed. I am going to plant beets in these two beds for a few years in a row. The reason being, I think I know the problem. And that goes back once again to organic matter. So once I put, say, 3 or 4 years of 2 inches of compost, and I'm putting the meadow clippings in there as well, I'll have a lot of organic matter here, and I think the beets will grow better then. I do have some that have come up to a fair size, but I don't think there's all that many. I'll get enough beets for myself. There's the other bed. That's a volunteer carrot. In this bed, there's beans. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, this is Soldier. They didn't do well. There's a couple of plants there that did well. The reason, I don't know. And I put another stretch of them in here. There's one there and one there. As you can see, they didn't do well. I have to try them in a full sun again next year, but I'm not saying that, oh, this is a great bean for this location now, because, well, this year mine didn't do well. We shall see. But there is another bean that did well. Most of this big leaf stuff here, that's black eye beans, I believe it's called. Now this bed, it gets more sun. I planted some in here, and you can see one little straggly plant there, but that's just because you got that overhead. Where it got plenty of sun, they grew very well. Now they're bush beans. It did say though that they might benefit with some support, and you can see how they're all laid over that way. So when I plant them again, for each row, I'll put a stake on the ends. I'll put a stake down on one side of the row, and then over, say, a foot, put another stake down, and then run 2 strings down each side of the row of beans. So black eye beans, they were a success, and the Jacob's cattle beans were a success. I'm still trying to see if Soldier bean will be a success or not. So I planted two little tiny echinacea plants 2 years ago. And look how much they come. They multiply very well. The best time to split those is in the spring. So come next spring, I'm going to dig those up, and I'm going to get at least 3 bunches to put down by the front fence. And I will still have 2 bunches in here. The chamomile, they done wonderfully. This is one of the things I have to wait until next year to put the meadow clippings. I can't just lay meadow clippings down heavy here, because that will prevent the reseeding of the chamomile. So the last thing that I can put down in the fall is compost before they actually start to fade. There's an opening here. This is the green lemon thyme. Yes, green lemon thyme because I took the French thyme and planted it over here. Remember last year, one of the French thyme was killed by the cold, and this one was knocked way back. If we don't get the abnormal temperatures, then I expect this one to grow just as big as the green lemon thyme. And I'm still debating whether I should take the French tarragon up and put it about halfway in between those two plants. Over here, remember I mentioned the frost? Well, there wasn't a lot of frost because, as you can see, it didn't completely kill the basil. The basil is still growing there. It's got parts of it killed where the frost hit it, but still growing well. This lavender is growing really nicely. That one over there was shaded out, but it's coming along now that I've taken all the other growth away from it. I didn't harvest from this year. This is bronze fennel. Those flowers didn't open, so I should do some research on that. Maybe next year I might get some fennel seed if I let it grow up like that. And look at this guy. It wasn't all that long ago I put out the video trimming back the herbs, where I trimmed this way back, and now it's bigger than what it was when I trimmed it back. It just exploded in growth during September. And I figured out what this one was. This is Winter Savory. 3 plants of it right here. These flowers are from the Chinese celery. There's attack oregano and Greek oregano, of course. Growing nicely. Now here is something I am so happy with. Look at how wonderfully well these lettuce grew. I mean, back when I was young, we just grew the traditional beets, turnip, potato, carrot type things. Salad greens was not even something people around us thought about growing. So I had to learn in the last few years how to grow salad greens. And the lettuce now, last year it was growing nicely, and this year I've got it to grow so beautifully. There's that bed. And this one we'll ignore the chickweed for now, but the red curly leaf lettuce there and the romaine. This bed seriously needs some amending. I'll bring you up here and show you. It's got basically nothing, just what was there before. I actually made this into a bed, just the native soil, and so a few years of compost dressing will do that good. And then this, even though it grew nicely this year, it will grow much better when I get that done. And back to the main reason why I done such a chaos gardening this year was to see where things would grow the best. And I have some beautifully growing plants here. Now, this one I've harvested from already, some really big leaves. This one I've harvested from. That one over there I've harvested from. And these were put in, if you remember, just before I went on my trip. They were like the middle of July that they were put in there. The ones that were put in earlier in this pretty much complete shade. As you can see, it gets a little bit of dappled sun to the trees. I mean, look how big they grew. with a little bit more attention, I think I'll be able to get some good heads of cabbage here next year. Once again, like I said over in the other place, it seems that this red cabbage is not as damaged by the bugs as the green cabbage is. This is a broccoli. It didn't produce a head, but like I said, it grew well, so I'm getting there. These are Brussels sprouts. It's not showing any sprouts yet. And this looks like a cauliflower. And another kale growing back here, but they're growing to such deep shade that, well, at some point they've got to quit growing, don't they? The potatoes that I planted here behind the shop, they are all starting to give up their life now. I started here early in September. I took up a couple. I'm like, uh-oh, this don't look good. I had a few little tiny potatoes. But over September, the potatoes are growing well. And I took up a few there. And then on the outside of that bed, I got some. And I was getting just over £1 per plant. And according to my research, a pound of plant for potatoes is a good harvest. As you can see, the frost killed most of the leaves on the squash and the zucchini, but the zucchini is actually still alive, and I do have little zucchini that are still growing. The squash, the spaghetti squash, I'll stick in a picture and show you what I got. Swiss chard, it doesn't grow well. It would do better in the sun, but it grows in shade. If you had a shady plot, you can grow Swiss chard. Now here is spinach, and a lot of that mess there is spinach. And here's arugula. Combining that, because letting it grow up like that, I wouldn't advise it. So what I'm going to do next year is both with all of the spinach, arugula, lettuce. I'm going to plant just enough that I might use that much in a week, and then each week I'll plant a new bunch. So I'll start the middle of May, maybe early May, and plant, say, a half a dozen plants of each 1 week. And then the next week plant another half a dozen seeds, and the next week plant another half a dozen. And that way you have a succession of young plants throughout the whole growing season. Letting them grow up like this, well, as you can see, once again, they flopped over, so you'd need to put a little fence around them to keep them upright if you wanted to get seed. Right now, there's lots of seed pods on this arugula, but for the most part it's green. Now, will that have done better if I had just a few plants and had it held upright with a fence? That I don't know. But what I could do is take the one bed and separate it. Anything that won't cross-pollinate, 2 rows of spinach, a little space, 2 rows of arugula, another little space, then I could put 2 rows of beets, 2 rows of carrot, 2 rows of some kind of brassica, and have the one bed of, okay, I'm growing this for seed, and have a little fence thing around each set. This is my first year growing onions from seed. It's red spring onions. I think they're supposed to get larger than this. About that size, actually full size I think. But this is my first try. And I've got a few nice onions. Of course, as you can see, they're not dead yet. The stalks are still quite strong on them. And depending on the weather, we don't know. We might even have a full month for them to grow yet. So the red spring onions I am very happy with. Coming down to the other end of the bed, these are the conserva shallots. They haven't grown to the full size that they're supposed to grow. They are, once again, still growing strong. But it might be, you see, I've got a volunteer potato right here. I've got another one right here. So you've got foliage up in the way. I'm considering them a success. Just because, well, I did get a shallot, and not an insignificant one. And it's my first time growing from seed. Brought you back over to the sunny patch to show you. These are the rest of the red spring onions here. And we're going to do something. I've got some nice carrots. Show you that. But the other thing I want to show you here is that, as you can see, there's not much sign of the ambition shallots that I planted here. Just I planted directly the seed in the soil. This is one here. And you got nothing on the bottom. Now that's not to say the ambition shallots are no good. That's just to say that direct sowing them doesn't seem to be a good idea. I do, however, have a bigger one right here. But not much became of them. I've got section 2 almost cleaned up. And as I'm mowing it, I'm putting it here. Because this is what I am going to plant my potatoes in next year. Well, this is the area of about 4 beds worth here. And as we're talking about it, you can see it obvious now because there's so much leaves around up there. I had let stuff grow up. And the leaves from those aspen had turned brown. But this is what I mean by meadow clippings. Usually during the season it's all green when you see it, but this is what is in the mix. And of course, you've seen this one in the fall maintenance of the raspberry patch. But to point out, as you can see, when the weather starts to get cold, the new canes for this year turn brown real fast. And so you have to get your raspberry patch done before they turn brown. My apple tree, the apples is not ripe yet, and it didn't produce very much this year. And there's one last thing that I wanted to show you. Actually, I guess I'll show you the pumpkin too. I put the tarp over there because There's one pumpkin there. The other pumpkin, down right there, he's not getting ripe yet. It's not very big pumpkins, but as far as I know, they are not supposed to grow very big. What I wanted to show you down here, this one, we'll go down there in a minute, and this one. These are grapevines that are now 19 years old. They, almost every year, are loaded in grapes. Now, when I actually get the time and inspiration, etc., etc., and I can make a pergola, a trellis, something to string them along and have the bunches of grapes hanging down in the sun, maybe I'll get some ripe ones. I don't know. This one grows the biggest. It just, you can hardly keep this thing cut back. And as you can see, there's grapes everywhere on this thing. Wherever you part the branches, there's a bunch of grapes. But there is a product called verjus, or in English, a verjus. Verjus, that's the French, V-E-R-J-U-S. So you take your unripe grapes and juice them to make a juice that is used the same way we use lemon and lime juice. So when these branch leaves start to die back, I am going to harvest every grape and make this verjuice out of it. So I think I showed you everything. That's all in section 1. I got section 2 almost cleaned up, as I said, so I'll be showing you that here fairly soon. It's a sunny day. I'm hoping I can get the mowing done there right now. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Click that like button. And if you haven't subscribed and you want to follow how a organic garden and food forest grows in Newfoundland, hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video.